So thinking back, what account have we used the most? Cash. Okay. And have we been paying with dollar bills and coins?
No.
What have we been paying with?
Debit and credit.
Checks, right? We've been writing checks. So a company needs to have a cash control system. And so that's what this chapter is about. How are you controlling the cash? Cash is something that can get lost in transit, right? And it's something that people might want to steal. And so even our employees, our customers, whatever the case may be. So we need to have some kind of system to make sure that we have cash control. We know how much is in our bank account. We know how much we should have, okay? And then it all matches up, okay? So we have to keep track of that. Now, we are talking specifically about checks in the book.
Is this chapter 5?
Yeah. But some companies will have company credit cards. Owners of companies will have credit cards. And you still have to have a system to keep track of that, okay? I don't know if you remember back in The Prophet when they were sitting there at the table and they were going through the credit card statement, and there were things in there for business, but there were also things in there for personal, right? And so somebody has to take that credit card statement and go through and journalize everything that's there. So all the stuff that owner was buying that was for himself, where would that be categorized? What account? Drawing, right? So so the guy that was doing, I wouldn't call him the accountant, but he was kind of doing the books, right? He was taking care of that. He was the CFO. He was categorizing all of that into that drawing account. And so he knew how much that owner was using for his personal business. And when we first started talking about the drawing account, I talked about how it didn't really matter what he was pulling it out for. It could be for a vacation, it could be for a boat, whatever the case may be. And that's kind of the case in the video. It didn't really matter. He was the owner, but he wasn't the only owner. He did have a little bit of a partnership, right? But how did that make those people feel? That all their hard work and then the owner just keeps pulling all this cash out of the business, right? To go to breakfast and lunch and, right? He was basically living off of the business, okay? And so as a good owner, as a good boss, that's probably not the best practice, is it? It can be done, okay, if you're the owner, but it's better to keep that separate. And what's that concept? Keeping the personal separate from the business. Business entity, very good. Okay. All right, so how many of you have a bank account? Good. Some of you? Okay. If you don't have one, do you think you need to get one pretty soon? Probably pretty soon. Okay. Anybody have a checkbook with their bank account? Do you really? Where you write checks? Have you written checks? No. You haven't written any, but you do have some checks? Okay. So a lot of the accounts, you may not have to get a checkbook. Anybody actually written a check before? A few of you? Okay. I remember going to college my freshman year. No, my sophomore year. And I don't remember how I paid. I don't remember it my sophomore year for some reason. I just had to write that huge tuition check. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I even write this? How do I even fit this on the line? So you may not write very many checks, and that's becoming less and less of an activity. But it's good to know the pieces and the parts, okay? And just the whole procedure, being able to track all of the purchases, right? And be able to keep track of it in some way. We're going to use a checkbook. We're going to use the check stubs. But if you're a company that uses mostly, company credit cards or something like that to make those kind of purchases, then you would have to come up with a system to keep track of that, okay? Especially if multiple people have cards. What else was I gonna say? Oh, and I've been writing checks like for lunch accounts, writing a check to a PTA, things like that. Your parents may still send checks for that, but now even that's becoming less and less because schools, and organizations, you can send money to each other, with mobile apps and all that kind of stuff. So even that kind of sharing of money, not through businesses but more personal, has become less check oriented. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't write very many checks. The only ones I write now, I write a check for my son's tutoring when he goes to tutoring, and PTA dues. I do write a check for my lunch account, just because they charge me if I do it online. They charge me like $2 extra. I'm like, I'll just write you a check. Okay. All right. So when a business first starts, we get that investment from the owner, right? So we take that check from the owner and we take it to the bank and we open a bank account for the business, right? So we'll have deposit slips. Everybody filled out a deposit slip? You put money in your account with a check, okay? So sometimes you have them. If you have a checkbook, you may get a check register. Looks something like this, okay? This one doesn't have it. And then in the back, in the back of your checkbook, there's deposit slips where you can fill that out. Or you can just grab one from the bank. They'll have them there, okay? And so we're going to go through making deposits on deposit slips. Of course, writing checks. When you look at a check, actually this one doesn't. I don't know that I'll use that one. These do. We have a routing number. So even if you don't have a checkbook, you have to know this routing number to be able to get direct deposit, right? So if you have a job, you maybe had to contact your bank and find out what the routing number was and what your account number was so that they can do a direct deposit for your check, okay? So that's what these numbers are at the bottom of a check. That's the routing number. So that's basically the ID of the bank. And then this is the account number, my account number, whose ever account for that check. And then this number usually matches the number of the check, okay? And that's a digital read, right, where the computer can read that as it comes in. When you go in to open an account, you usually have to take some cash in, open that account, and the bank has to know your signature, right? Because they want to be able to match your signature with deposits, with checks that you write, things like that. So you usually probably have to sign a signature card. Do you remember that? Okay, and that may be electronic too. I'm not sure. I haven't done that in a long time. So, okay. All right, so what we're going to look at, first is when you get a check, you need to endorse it. You know what that means? No? When you get a check and you want to take it and put it in your bank account, you have to sign the back of it. Okay, that's endorsements. And there's different ways of doing that. Okay, there's different kinds of endorsements. And that's what this top part is. Okay, so this is like this back. You have the check here. Okay, the back side of it usually has a space up here at the top. Sometimes it's just blank, sometimes there's lines. Okay, they don't want you writing all over the check. They just want you doing it right up here. And this is where you sign it. Okay, and maybe put some extra words to create some different kinds of endorsements. Okay, so what we're going to start with is a blank endorsement. Okay, so a blank endorsement means we just sign our name. Okay, so right there on that first line, that X, just sign your name. Okay? Now, the deal with the blank endorsement is as soon as you sign your name, that check almost becomes like cash. Okay? So if you get the check, you sign your name, and you're carrying it around for a week in your car, your purse, or your backpack, or whatever, and you lose it, somebody can find it, they can sign their name right below it and take it to their bank. Okay? So I don't like to sign it until I get to the bank for that reason. Okay? If I'm just going to cash it. Okay? If I'm just going to cash it, all I need to do is sign it. Okay? So, just to add some notes to this. This is a blank endorsement. If it's lost, anyone can cash it. Okay? Number 2, you should sign your name exactly as it is on the check. Okay, so you may have Lillian versus Lily. Maybe Grandma calls you Lily and she writes your name down that way, okay? My husband's Michael, so sometimes it's Mike, sometimes it's Michael, sometimes it's Michael A., just depending on where the check is coming from. So you need to sign it with name that is on the front. Okay, and my little tidbit, sign at the bank. I'm sitting at the drive-thru ready to go through. I'm going to sign it right then. Okay. Now, if you are going to deposit it, and you're not necessarily going to cash it, you can do a restrictive endorsement. Okay, and this is where we write deposit only. Okay, so you'll see different variations of this, but we're going to write for deposit only. To the account of, and then whatever it may be. So I think this is coming from our book. So it's Grantsburg Accounting. And a lot of times you'll see an account number there as well. Can y'all see that? Let me zoom in. Whoops, my zoom's not working. I don't know why my zoom's not working. Okay. Grantsburg Accounting, and like I said, a lot of times you'll see an account number as well. I wish they'd have put that in there. I should just make one up. And then you sign your name. Okay, and you're always signing your name on these for the lessons. Okay, so if you know you get a check from Grandma in the mail for your birthday or whatever, and you know you're going to just deposit it, if you want to sign it right away, you can, as long as you put deposit only on there. And usually I just sign my name, write deposit only, and write my account number on there. Okay, now when you go to a store, if you were to write a check at a store and give it to them, then they're usually going to run it through a machine or stamp it right away. Okay, so here, where'd my example go? Here's an example, and there's a story behind this little check. But this is a check I wrote to Reagan PTA. Okay, so you can see on the back they actually have pay to the order of, this is a little different because they're kind of using a combination of the special endorsement and the restrictive endorsement. But really, for deposit only, Ronald Reagan High School PTA with their account number. Okay, so there's stamps that you can buy that have that on there, or like I said, if you do it at a store, they'll run it through, and that's what's going on there right away. So that at that point, nothing can be done with that check except to deposit it in that account. If it's lost, either somebody throws it away or it gets found, but it can only be deposited in that account. Okay? So that's the restrictive. All right, and then this one is a special endorsement. And this is where we're going to transfer our check to somebody else. Okay? So notice on the front of a check, right over here on this front, this left side, it says paid to the order of. And that's usually where your name is written if somebody wrote you a check, or if you're writing a check to Reagan PTA or whatever, right? You would write there. So paid to the order of. So a special endorsement, we write paid to the order of. And then we write somebody else's name. So we're transferring this check to somebody else. So Clara Kwan is the name we're given in the book. And then we sign our name again. Okay? So if you want to buy something, you want to buy some headphones or something from your buddy for $50, and Grandma sent you a check in the mail for $50. You can take that check from Grandma, write pay to the order of, put your buddy's name on there, sign it, give him the check, and then it's his to be able to take to the bank. Okay? So you're transferring it basically. All right? So we're indicating a new owner. It's kind of a transfer. To a new owner. Okay, so that takes care of endorsements. Now we're going to look at actually writing checks. Okay. Now, for business, writing the check, okay, we're going to go through that process, but a big part of it is this check stub. And we've seen this check stub when we were doing our source document problems, right, a couple different times. But the check wasn't necessarily attached to it because we had written the check, we tore it off, we gave it to somebody, okay? But this is really our accounting record, okay? This is where we know what accounts to put it in and to be able to check our cash status throughout the month. Okay? So this is our check stub. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to fill out the part for this check. Okay, the information for this check. Before we write the check, let's fill this out so we don't forget it. Sometimes we may get excited or we're in a hurry, we want to write the check, tear it out, and give it to them. But if we haven't made notes as to who that was to or what it was for, then when it comes time to go journalize that, we don't have a clue. We have to go back and think or ask people or whatever, right? So it's just not good practice there. Okay, so we are going to write, actually, so let me back up a little bit. Record the balance forward. Okay, so in our book, it actually goes to number 2, which is record the balance brought forward on check stub number 151. So, this is the first thing we do when we're going to write the check, but there's going to be numbers that are already on here, and that's coming from the previous check. So it's telling us the balance brought forward is 2145. 2145.88. So we got to squeeze that in there. 214588. And this is the balance brought from check number 150. Okay? And then it also tells us that we need to record a deposit made on June 30th on this check stub. So before we've written this check, this is the next unused check stub. You've seen that wording a couple different times. the next unused check stub. Okay, that's where we record our deposit. So, I don't know, it says on June 30th, we made a deposit into the bank. So what we have to do is we need to come down here, right here, to the amount deposited and put that amount in. So on 6/30, 2018, oh, I really don't know why I'm not zooming. Yeah. 6/30, 2018, deposit of $316. Okay, so this is what was on the previous check stub. I just deposited this. Now I need a subtotal. So we need to go ahead and add those up. 2145.88 plus 316. 2461. 88. 2461. 88. Okay, so this part can happen. This right here has nothing to do, well, I shouldn't say that. This part right here has nothing to do with this current check. Okay, this is helping us keep track of the amount. Okay, so then they want us to write the check. All right, so this is going to go to A1 Computers for repairs. So the date is June 30th. (2018) to A1 Computers for repairs. Okay, that for repairs is important. Tell me why. What account it would go into. So what would this be, most likely? Repair expense, right? Okay. If it's an accounts payable, then we know who the company is, right? Because it's all right here. And the amount is $148. So that'll go up here. Oh, there's a 2018 right there. Probably should have used that. Then once we get this filled out, then come take care of the check. Okay, so this is number 2. Take care of the check. So at the top, we'll write the date, June 30th, 2018. Paid to the order of A1 Computers. For $148. Now, I want to go through a couple things right here real quick. When we write this number, okay, when you write the number for the check, you want to write it as close to the dollar sign as you can. So here's our blank, just like right here. Okay, write it as close to the dollar sign as you can. 148, and then you want to raise your zeros. Okay. Raise your zeros, maybe put an underline, or sometimes you see an XX there. And I'm going to show you why. Okay? Because if we have this dollar sign and we write 148.00, okay, then we have all this space right here in the front. So somebody may come in and go, oh, let's do that. Right? That completely changes things, okay? Again, if we have 14800, then they may come in and say, let's put a comma there, and then add another 00. Okay, so you're leaving room for people to start tampering with your check. See that? Okay, so go ahead and write as close to the dollar sign as you can, And then I like to go ahead and raise the zeros and draw a line underneath. Okay? And then we have to write it out in words. And this is kind of like the security check to make sure that somebody hasn't really tampered with it. Okay? This number and this number that you've written out in words have to match. Okay? So 148 and 0 cents. That's how we're going to write that out. 100. We don't use an and here. It's not 148 because the and kind of signals pennies. 148. You can write the word and. You can use the and symbol. Okay, either one of those are good. And then you're going to put your cents, again, as kind of a fraction. You can use 0 over 100. You will also see the word no. No 100s. No pennies. Okay? And then whatever space you have left on this line, you need to draw a line to make sure nobody comes in and adds stuff after it. Okay. Another couple little variations. I guess you could, but let's say you had to write a check for 42 cents. How do you think we'd write that in words? 42 over 100, okay. So really it would be $0 and 42 over 100. Okay? This is just some other variations. You don't have to write this down. I'm just kind of showing it to you. Okay? I should have brought this up on the endorsements. If the check is made out to 2 people, okay, so sometimes a married couple, somebody might write a check to Mike and Danya Martin, okay? We're both going to have to sign it, okay? If it says and. It could say or. It could say Mike or Danya Martin, then either one of us could, all right? But if it says and, we'll both have to, okay, on the endorsements. All right. Again, what is it for? Repairs. Okay, and what goes on this line? Signature. Okay, you sign it.
Do we have to write our last name?
Yes. Can you sign your name in cursive? Can you sign your name? The whole non-cursive thing just kills me. Can you at least sign your name in cursive? You need to have a signature. You shouldn't have to print anything. Your name.
So if a check is like made out to 2 people, you go sign it, and if you deposit it, then does the cash just like split?
Well, it would really have to be the same account, right? Like a husband and wife. Then you might have to cash it yourself. Then I don't think the bank will do that separation thing. You can't go up and say, put 50 in this account and 50 in that account, right? Usually that's only written to people that have joint accounts. But I guess, sometimes parents, you have separate accounts. You probably just have to cash it and then separate it that way. Okay. So just to add some more notes to this, again, this part right here, this is a bank ID. Okay, or the routing number. This right here is the person's account number. The person writing the check, and this is the actual check number. Okay, you will also see this number right up here. That can be called the ABA number. When we put them on our deposit slip, a lot of times, if we don't want to write who it came from, maybe we get lots of checks from A1 Computers for repairs. So we want to specifically identify the check without putting this whole long thing, okay? So sometimes, and I'm going to tell you, and it's in our simulation packet later on, this is a number that we might use as well. And that's called the ABA number. A check identifier, yeah. Bank ID. Bank ID, routing number. Okay, so let's kind of look at this part again over here now. We've written the check. This is kind of our third part. Well, at least down here, this is our third part. Okay, that's actually coming from the previous check. So this balance brought forward would have come from check number 150. This is 151. This number came from the bottom of check 150. And then we'll take this number and put it at the top of 152. We're just going to carry that number throughout the checkbook. Okay. In this other section, you might have any other fees that you need to keep track of in your checking account. Okay. So you may have a service fee. You may have a credit card fee. Okay, and those are things that we'll maybe add in there kind of in a later process as we're doing the reconciliation from the bank. Okay, and then those would be subtracted from the subtotal to give us a new subtotal. Okay, so this minus this equals this. And if we want to do plus, these are plus equals this. Deposit it for adding, right? Fees we're taking out. If we don't have anything there, we'll just carry that number down. What is it, 2461? 88. And now it says amount this check. Where is that number coming from? Right here, right? Amount this check is 148. We're going to subtract that to get our new total. 2461.88 minus 148. 2313. Boxes are so small. 88. Okay, and then that number gets carried down to the next check stub. 2313. 88. So if I need to check to see how much I should have in my bank account, I can open up my checkbook, look right here at the register, and know that I have money in the account or how much I need to have there. Okay, so this balance carried forward comes down here to become the balance brought forward. Okay, so when I said that right here, the number that you write out in words must match the number written here. So last year, when I wrote my check to PTA, I was just in a hurry. It was breakfast. Somebody was talking to me. And so I wrote my PTA check for $5.25. And then in the words, I wrote 500. Okay? And the PTA lady had to come back to me and go, the bank wouldn't take it. So I had to write him another check for $5.25. So even with just that little amount, she was like, it's just the $5.25, that's all we want. The bank refused, they wouldn't take it. So she brought me back the check and I voided it and all that good stuff, right? But I kept it as an example so that you can see that the bank refused it when it didn't match up. Okay? If they don't like something about the check, they can refuse it. Now, a lot of you may deposit checks without that endorsement. I think the banks are being lenient, probably depending, especially if it's just a personal account, a little, like my son does it all the time. He's like, I never sign it. I'm like, you're supposed to. And I see signs on the ATMs. Make sure you sign the back of your check before you stick it in there, because that's what they really need that. Okay? All right, any questions on any of that? Okay, very quickly, go ahead and write the check 152. So look in your book on page 128. Check 152 is to Southwest Supplies for $62. So write that check, and then you can pack it away, and we'll check it tomorrow. 128. It's the working together 4B.